Hello everyone, welcome back to Retro Comms. Today I've got a little something different for you guys. You're not gonna believe it, but I actually have a collection of Apple products here. Nothing too special, 2 green ones, 2 red ones. I usually don't eat the items in my collection, but this time, don't mind if I do. Not bad. And that's the joy of using Apple products. This is Retro Comms signing off. Gotcha. This is my actual Apple collection. Here we have several iPhones as well as a little iPod Shuffle up there. I'm gonna go through these pretty quick as I don't have many, and most of these are duplicates with a few key exceptions in here. We'll start with the oldest device, as usual, the iPhone 3G. Looking around, this one has seen better days. Its back is all scuffed. The model number text down here is barely legible, which we'll touch on that in just a second. Right beside it, we have the 3GS, the next one in line. This one appears to have had a bit better time of it, but its volume keys are missing. I will need to one day perhaps source a replacement for those if it isn't too much of a process to get in there and put a new set back in. I despise working on iPhones. They are quite an inconvenience to work on, so the less time I have to spend disassembling them, the better. And back to the difference between these two, because from the front, they are impossible to tell apart. However, if we flip them around, for the iPhone 3G, this text here is in a slightly darker font. For the 3GS, it's more prominent. The iPhone 3G is model number. I'm not sure how well you can see this on camera here, but it is A1241, while the 3GS is model number, which will probably show up a bit better because of this brighter text and because this one didn't see as much damage. This one is model A1303. I'll try to put a clearer picture of the iPhone 3G on screen to where that model number is shown more prevalently. Moving right along, we have another iPhone 3GS. This one belonged to my little brother. I will briefly remove its case for just a second so I can show you that this is indeed model A1303, a 3GS. Let me try to put this little rubber case back on with one hand. It's a lot easier than trying to get some of these cases on and off. I can assure you that much. And voila, got it back on. He used that for a brief period. I'm not sure if he ever activated it or if he used it more like an iPod Touch, but it did serve him well in its time. Moving down the line, sadly I do not have any of the infamous iPhone 4s with their notoriously bad reception due to the poor antenna placement, but I do have 4 iPhone 4Ss. Now how can we tell a 4 from a 4S? Well, the 4S has these multiple antenna bands up top, while the 4, I believe, only had a single one right up here next to the headphone jack. Don't quote me on that one. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details of the iPhone 4, but it was so bad that holding it a certain way or putting a case on it would drastically interfere with its reception. But enough about the iPhone 4 and its poor signal pickup. Let's look around at this GSM iPhone 4S. It's not an immaculate specimen. It does have a few dings. Still using that 32-pin charger, which I forgot to touch on up here with the 3G and 3GS, but you might have seen. This was the same 32-pin charger that was used on most of the newer generations of iPod. There was one version before that. I think it was like a 16-pin, but I don't remember those details quite as well either, but know that they all used this 32-pin charger for the iPhones. Next up, another 4S. This one is the CDMA variant, as we can tell by its lack of a SIM card tray, while the GSM version over here, of course, has the SIM slot right there. This one, I think my little sister used it for a bit. She cracked it, tried to put a Charizard sticker there to, I don't know, cover the damage, keep it from spreading. Not sure what her logic was there, but as you see, glass backs do tend to crack. These smartphones were some of the first to introduce a glass back, which at the time, and even still now, I think was a horrible decision for durability, as we can see by this specimen right here. Up next, we've got this 4S, which I'm not going to take it out of this case, but you can see its antenna line right here to tell you that it is indeed a 4S. It's in pretty good condition as it was case kept. Not much else to say about this one here. Do note that these all work, but I could not find my 32-pin charger. I looked and I looked. So I can't show you any of these booting up or any of that. Next up, we have this 4S. Again, not going to remove it. In this battery case here. I think this is a Mophie? Not sure how you pronounce that, but one of the leading manufacturers of battery cases at the time. This poor case has soft touch degradation, something horrible. I had this on here just to show that these were common in the day for these iPhones because people found themselves needing a little extra boost for their batteries, which was an ingenious idea. People had these power banks that they carried around, and many still use them. So the inventors of this case said, why not just strap it on? They don't need to be the thinnest phones ever, so long as they have a nice high-capacity battery, which is logic that I wish more OEMs would heed. Sadly, this case is broken, I believe. I hear something rattling in there, but I'm not powering this phone on. I'm not powering the case. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Up next, we have the iPhone 5. I believe this is just a 5 and not a 5S. I think the 5S has a little S somewhere back here. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. Please tell me. I am not an Apple expert by any means, as you can probably tell by my lack of knowledge and how few devices I have in my collection here. One thing I had forgotten to mention is these little lock switches. This is a holdover from the iPod era, but I believe these were to cycle the phone between loud mode and silent mode. I don't think they were actually a lock switch or a hold switch. That's what these power buttons up here were for. This is where they switched over to the lightning connector that is still in use on iPhones today. I can commend them for keeping with the same connector throughout, instead of being like, say, LG and having 5 different proprietary chargers. There were probably more than 5, but you know. This one is GSM. There's its little SIM tray. At least I think so. The CDMA ones might have had a SIM slot for this model as well. Not entirely sure. And they still retain their headphone jack, which they did not lose until the iPhone 7. Foregoing the full glass back of the 4, I can give them points for that, but there's still a little bit of glass up here, which can crack if dropped with enough force. Using, I think this is aluminum for the frame. Good for this model, but for the 6, well, we're not going to talk about the iPhone 6. That brings back some very unpleasant memories. And speaking of memories, the final iPhone 5 was a gift from a dear friend in exchange for helping get some files off of here. I believe I managed to get most of her photos. I wish I could have gotten more, but sadly this thing's touchscreen suffers from an issue to where it just randomly stopped accepting touch. It was a known bug on some of these iPhones as they aged. Also a problem with third-party screens, but if I remember correctly, she said that she had not had this one serviced. Sad thing. She said that there were many, many little journal entries from some of her travels. I wish I could have saved more. But I do keep this phone as a reminder to always, 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 always back up the files. But most importantly, as memories of the time with my friend. But regardless, it stays in the little pink case. There's its headphone jack, there's its lightning port, there's its little camera, power button, lock switch, iPhone 5, just like this one over here, just with a case. And last but not least, well perhaps least in size, the iPod Shuffle. With its little clip and lock switch down here. Might have been a power switch instead. One of these powers it on, one of these is locking, I believe. Just a 3.5 millimeter port, which it charges from. And here it can clip to a belt or to a shirt or wherever you see fit to clip a portable MP3 player. This was great for someone who needed a device in a small form factor, say someone who might be jogging or performing some other sort of physical task, to where they couldn't have a big bulky thing connected to them at all times. Sadly, the only way to charge this is through this 3.5 millimeter port, and I don't have the charger for that, which is sad. Would have been neat to see what was on it. And with that, I would like to thank you guys for watching. Check out my Instagram, links down in the description, as always. And if there's anything I got wrong, anything that you would like to point out or correct, please do let me know. Again, I lack knowledge on these. I don't mess with iPhones very much, but here's what I've got. And of course, these Apple products will be thoroughly enjoyed throughout the week. Thank you all for watching. This is RetroComms, signing off.